Sam, and I wanted to give you another sneak peek into the Integral Astrology special group of classes that I put together. And make sure to register for the special, as we don't have unlimited time. It is a limited special, and as you can see, the clock is ticking. So enjoy today's video. Time. It didn't happen overnight. Billions of years of bodies colliding and things getting worked out to where we can sort of walk around on this Earth, and it all seems kind of stable. It all seems like, okay, here I am on my Earth, walking around my nice flat Earth, all nice and stable. This platform that I get to walk around on, right? We forget that right now, it's going. Anybody know how fast the Earth is going around the sun? How fast?
It's incredibly fast.
About almost 70,000 miles an hour. Right now, the Earth is going 70,000 miles an hour around the sun. Pretty crazy, isn't it? And spinning on its axis like about 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. So we're in Canada, so we're almost on the North Pole, right? So on the North Pole, it does. If you stand on the North Pole, you'll just go like this. Did you know that? You believed me, didn't you? You'll just kind of go like this at the North Pole. No, so up here, I usually say at San Francisco, it's like about maybe 500 miles an hour, something like that. So right now, the Earth is spinning on its axis really fast, and it's going around the sun almost 70,000 miles an hour. So the reason I say this is because, again, it's very easy for us to take for granted what we're in the middle of here. And we do. We totally take it for granted. And we're like, oh, we look for some miracle. God, where is God? Oh, I don't believe in God. How does all this, it's like, you look at this Earth and on this rock going around this ball of fire for all this time, but we don't even really have to look that far. And in fact, Ayurveda especially is the science of looking at the miracle of your body, because all of this divine wisdom, the wisdom that it took for all of this to take place, is actually folded into your body. That's what your body is. It took your body, it took bodies this long, it took the universe, or the sun, moon, and earth, and the other planets 4 billion years to start to produce bodies that work the way our body works. You understand? Does that make sense? Think about it this way. Again, I'm trying to opening the frame a little bit before we start, instead of just getting into all of this We have to understand why the rishis, why the Vedic people said all this stuff. Why are they saying all this stuff, and all these gods and all this crazy stuff? They're not just saying it so that we'll believe it. It's based on the science and based on the universe that we can see for ourselves. And that's what your body is. Your body is the wisdom of the universe that you're just kind of walking around in. Do you know how your body works? Think about it. You just eat food and your body does all this work. You don't do it. What if you had to do it? What if you had to know how to digest all your food and make it go where it's supposed to go? Create your organs, keep your blood pumping, keep your breath going. What if you had to remember to do it? You say, oh, I can do that. Really? Your body can do it. Can you do it? Do you know how it works? No. No one knows how it works. No one knows how anything works. Think about it. It's pretty crazy, isn't it? How many preconceptions we walk around in, and we don't pay attention to any of this stuff. We're just like, oh well, get on my computer. This is me. My computer and check my Facebook and upload my video. Oh, this person made a bad comment. Oh, this person doesn't like me. Oh, I hate them. Right? We're like crazy. Right? Walking around in this miracle all around us, living it, I'm going to get some food now. Yeah, I feel better. And we don't have to pay attention to anything, right? Our body just digests the food, and it doesn't even just digest good food. Look at how much we abuse our body. And our body just finds some way to do it, finds some way to keep us alive, so that we can get on Facebook and get angry at people and do all kinds of stuff that we do, right? And the universe keeps giving us food and all this stuff. We didn't do anything to deserve it. We didn't create any of it. It's just there. It's pretty crazy, isn't it? And this is why they spoke about the planets, the sun, the moon, and all the other planets as gods and deities, because their energies working and moving the way they do are what has created all of this. And it's very literal, okay? In the Indian sense, in the Eastern sense, it's not some, like, kind of, archetypal relationship. So we live in the West, and, some of you maybe, if you've studied Western astrology, which works fine, and I have many great friends who are excellent Western astrologers. It's a major science that works really well. But one of the things that's different is because it's Western, they would never say things like, the planets are gods, or some kind of proclamation like that. Well, we have this kind of archetypal relationship, as above, so below, and they're kind of inferences, they don't, blah, 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 blah. They just get all this babble about it, right? Because they can't just say, you know what? We're living this, like, cosmic, universe that creates everything, and the planets are the entities that have created everything. And their movements show our movements. And we're not separate from them. They have a real hard time with that kind of concept. Indians, and in fact, unfortunately, because what we might call Eastern and Western, many who do and who practice even Indian astrology these days have the same kind of problem. They get into the same kind of conundrum about explaining what astrology is. This is why I'm spending a lot of time doing it, is so that we actually know what we're talking about. And in the Indian sense, there is no confusion. Okay? The planets are the deities, that they're the incarnations of Lord Vishnu. The first handout that I gave you, we're going to read through the words from Parashara. We're not going to do it yet. But you'll see exactly what Parashara says and exactly what he says about this stuff that I'm talking about now. This is why I'm starting to talk about this first, because I don't want to just start reading this stuff and have you go, oh, that's cool, and have you just kind of believe it or wonder about it. You don't have to believe it. It doesn't have to be a religion, and astrology is not a religion. It's confirmed by the natural world that we see. The ancient Indian people knew it. They weren't just saying, believe all this stuff. They were saying, we have observed this, and this is how the universe works. And see, ultimately, that's the reason actually to study astrology, because astrology is the only one of the sciences that shows you, or that actually discusses and describes how the universe works. How the universe works. Okay, yoga is your relationship and your capacity to evolve your consciousness in this lifetime. That's what yoga is, a set of practices where you can evolve your consciousness. Ayurveda is how you take care of your body and your being each day primarily, and to stay on track. But they don't actually tell you how the universe works and answer that basic question that everyone has, which is, who am I and why am I here? Every child wants to know this, and we want to know it. And we find an answer some way. Otherwise we'd kill ourselves if we didn't have some answer. Everyone finds some answer to that question, and it's usually some kind of religion, where they believe something, but they really don't have any idea they don't have any idea why what they're saying works. So this is why people get into such a crisis of faith as well. This is why in the name of religion you see so much terrible things happen and whatnot, right? People believe in this God, or they believe in this. Everybody has a philosophy and a worldview about why we're here and what all it means. But people don't really know, and they don't understand it. They don't understand how things work. And so astrology, especially, is the science where we can actually know this. And not even just generally. We're going to talk about the specific things here this weekend. But that's really the most honored place and the traditional place of astrology, even in ancient Indian culture. Now we get into things like birth charts and all of that, which is certainly fine. We're all supposed to also know our individual self in alignment with the cosmic self. But that wasn't the initial application of astrology either. Initially, astrology was literally the science of doing things at the right time for like the rituals and whatnot. Because what the ancient rishis did is they would perform pujas and rituals and bring in specific energies at specific times, and that's what astrology allowed them to do. And by the way, it's the reason why we still study Indian culture, because as I say, all of the ancient cultures had the same knowledge. All of the ancient cultures from the entire world knew the same stuff that the Indians knew. But we still study the Indian culture because they were also master astrologers and they did things at the right time. This is why even though India, the Indian subcontinent, even though they've been invaded and occupied and for thousands of years, their knowledge is still intact. The only one. Think about it for a minute. India's never invaded other countries. You never had, okay, the Indians going to go take over Iran and plunder their culture. Of all, India's never done it. They've been occupied by Westerners, Easterners, Arabs, everybody. But the sacred lineage is still preserved all the way back. Thousands of years, unbroken. Now, there are definitely holes in it for sure. But it's much more intact than any other ancient culture. And I mean, all you need to do is go, even like in South America now with like the Mayan culture, they're starting to now recover a lot of things that are much older, and it's a great tragedy that we don't have the same systems intact from these other cultures, because they also had their own version. They had their own yoga, they had their own astrology, they had their own cosmology, their own mythology, but it's broken. It's not unbroken the way it is in India. And the reason is because they knew when to do things. They knew how to, they knew the correct time to write the book so that even if they're plundered and invaded, the book will still sustain. And that's what astrology is about. It's seeing what the sacred message is at any given time. Does that make sense? So, again, one thing I just want to also show something else relative to this, because it will also really land a concept for you. Another way to understand that timeline, I've seen it now quite a bit, where people explain this, time of humans on Earth relative to the age of the Earth. Another way to look at it is that, I saw something recently that was really good. If you were to drive, if that same timeline were driving from LA to San Francisco, LA to New York, right? Imagine driving LA to New York. The Cambrian, or LA to I think they said the Empire State Building. They gave it a landmark because you can't say New York because it's too wide. LA to the Empire State Building. That Cambrian explosion would happen right when you enter New York, right when all the life started, and the age of humans would be the last block, right? So that's the same kind of. So if 10 feet of books in the last page lands it, imagine driving from New York, or from LA to New York and to the Empire State Building, and that 100,000 years is the last block. That's pretty crazy. So it took that long for the sun, moon, and earth to work into the sacred vibration that allows for this smooth sort of situation where our body, where that whole wisdom of the cosmos is folded into all the cells of our body. We're a very complex organism. It took a long time for all of those energies to work into that way. And one of the things that happened that we can observe has to do with the sun, moon, and earth. Have you ever noticed how the sun and the moon look exactly the same size to us? And ever thought, gee, that's kind of weird. How does this big ball of fire look, and this little rock, which have nothing to do with each other, by the way. One is just a rock, another is a big ball of fire. When you look at them, one, it's exactly the same size as the other. In fact, so much so that it like blocks the other one out when we have solar eclipse. Does this seem weird? I mean, imagine even just like if you could find an object now and it's exactly the same size as my head. Like you could take your thumb and try to block out my head just so my hair was showing, but you would see you have to like, there's only like, okay, like right there. If it's right here, no, it's too much. So we have these two arbitrary objects moving around. This is based on, it's an equation, and it's based on the number 108. Anyone know about the number 108? It's a sacred number, and it's a number of mantras that we count on our mala beads. Basically, let's say this is the sun, this is the earth. Let's say this is the earth, this is the moon. Basically, you can fit 108 suns between the sun and the earth, and you can fit 108 moons between us and the moon. So basically, these two objects have moved into this sacred vibration, and how long do you think they've been in that sacred vibration? About the last 100,000 years, since there's been humans. About the last 100,000 years, because the moon slips out of its orbit. The moon is getting further away from us about a half an inch every year, I think is what it is, if I remember. I did the calculations before. So 300,000 years ago, the moon was much larger relative. It would block out more of the sun, right? A couple 100,000 years before, it was closer. The Earth, the moon probably came from the Earth because it's actually moving that direction in a very small, like every 100,000 years it moves another diameter. On average. Now, again, these are averages because the orbits of the planets are not. It's not a consistent circle. But on average, this is the mean distance. So,
is it 108 suns or 108 Earths between sun and Earth?
Sun.
Suns?
Yes. So there's 108 suns between us and the sun, 108 moons between us and the moon. Okay? So if it was the Earth, then, see, it's the ratio between scale and distance. This is why they appear to be the same size. Now, I say this because it took 4.5 billion years just for that to happen. We can see that. We can observe it. And we know that the moon, especially, is moving further away incrementally each year.